guys! Today we'll be recapping a manhwa called The Invincible Princess is Bored Again Today. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, as it really helps our channel. Thanks. We begin our story not with a princess, but a girl who came from nothing. Dante Renatos was born to the crown prince and his concubine. Not wanting to take responsibility for his illegitimate daughter, the prince abandoned Dante with her mother, who left her for dead in a faraway city. Damn, talk about a tragic backstory. Dante had a rough start in life. She lived with beggars and prostitutes and stole to survive. But when she was 12 years old, she was offered a new start. The professor of a knight's academy offered her a chance to try her hand at swordsmanship. Dante thought this was a joke, so she decided to prove the man wrong by defeating every one of his students. Shocked, Professor Rowe immediately took her in and gave her the name Dante since her deadbeat parents never gave her one. Although he was kind for helping the girl off the streets, Professor Rowe worked her to the bone and forced her to practice until she dropped. But Dante bore the pain. When she was 19, Professor Rowe passed away, so Dante signed up for a championship and won a bit of money. She went on to become a mercenary, earning a living and making a history in the war. One of her most famous triumphs was against the demonic dragon Crest, whom she defeated with nothing but her blades. After that, the whole world opened up. People begged her to marry their sons or come to work as a hired knight. When she was 23, the emperor summoned her to the Imperial palace. That's right, the crown prince who had abandoned her as a baby was now an emperor. He gave her the name Renatos and brought her back to the family as reward for all her achievements. But Dante wasn't satisfied. She demanded land, a mansion of her own, and 10 million gold bars, as well as permission to manage the soldiers. I mean, if you know your worth, why not ask for it? Frankly, the emperor was so intimidated by this crazy sword-wielding daughter that he agreed to her outrageous terms. From then on, she lived a life of luxury and eventually became empress herself. Despite the many hardships, Dante lived a happy life, even though she died at the age of 30. And 500 years later, her soul was reincarnated as Helena Pereska, the youngest daughter of Duke Pereska. Helena still has all her memories from her life as Dante, so being a young and pampered princess was a bit of an adjustment. Helena is now 10 years old and has 3 times the intelligence and manners of kids her age. Well, duh, there's literally a full-grown empress inside her. Helena is the pride of her family, but because she's already lived a life of adventure and extremes, she finds everything pretty boring. The Duke and Duchess Pereska were very concerned by their dry, deadpan daughter and wanted to help her find more joy in life. Her older brother Leonard was also very affectionate, so when she takes an interest in his swordsmanship classes, he invites her along. After the endless fighting of her past life, Helena has no more interest in actually wielding a sword. But she has some suspicions about his teacher, who is very flamboyant and thinks girls shouldn't use swords. I hope she gets to teach him a lesson. Leonard sticks up for her and tells his teacher that Helena can do whatever she wants, but he challenges him to a duel to shut him up, even though Leonard is literally 13 and he's barely learned anything yet. Helena was right, this guy is definitely a fraud. He's actually so mean, he keeps making fun of the way Leonard moves and laughs at him when he falls over. What kind of teacher is that? He's also not a very good swordsman. It's a wonder how he got hired. So while Leonard comes off for a break, she gives him a few pointers to strike back. He doesn't even question the fact that his 10-year-old sister has expert advice on something she's never studied. He just trusts her completely. This boy is too sweet. When the battle resumes, both fighters are twice as fierce as before. Leonard struggles initially, but at last he spots the opportunity Helena told him to look for, and he takes it. Instantly, the teacher is on the ground groaning. What a baby! He's clearly a sore loser, as he immediately starts screaming at the kids and telling Helena not to mess in the affairs of men. Oh, you've really done it now, buddy. Having finally had enough of his excuses, Helena takes her brother's sword and challenges the teacher herself. Despite being half his size and twice as weak, she gives him a good beating and even tells him what he's doing wrong in the middle of the battle. When the battle is over and the teacher is on the floor again, she tells him he'd be better suited to sewing than fighting. Boom! That's gotta hurt his ego. She throws the sword in the air, and as it lands right on his head, she tells him he's fired. I don't know who gave her the authority to fire someone at the age of 10, but after a duel like that, I don't think anyone would dare to argue. Her brother is shocked. But since Helena has seemed like a genius from a young age, I guess it's not suspicious. Finally, his sister has found a purpose in life, to be his swordsmanship teacher. Wait, what? I thought she was sick of fighting from her past life. Does she really want to do this all over again? Helena and Leonard explain the whole situation to their parents, who seem to be the only ones with the right reaction. Like, wouldn't you be kind of freaked out? She asks for permission to teach her brother, and after a week of consideration, her father calls her into his office. It turns out that teacher was a fraud. He was the worst in his class at school, and even though he graduated from a prestigious institution, he's known as a bit of an idiot. The Duke seems disappointed in himself, but Helena is just glad they caught him early. Otherwise, Leonard would have learned all the wrong techniques and had to start again from scratch. Her dad has clearly thought long and hard about her proposal. Even though she's a genius, any reasonable person would be worried about a 10-year-old teaching someone how to use a sword when she's never fought herself. But then, she's never shown an interest in something like this before, so he makes a suggestion. Next week, they will have a visitor to the estate around Leonard's age. He offers her a trial period. If Helena can teach Leonard well enough to beat their guest, then he'll consider a long-term solution. The only catch is that their guest is none other than Prince Caesar, who has studied at the Imperial Palace and been training years longer than Leonard. But with the legendary Dante Renatos at his side, there's nothing he can't do. Prince Caesar is a member of the Grey family, who have all distinctive red eyes. As soon as Helena sees them, she is reminded of the man she passed on the throne to before she died in her past life, her close friend Duke of Pereska. When he arrives at the estate, Helena is shocked by the resemblance. But unlike her friend the Duke, Prince Caesar is rude as heck. Clearly, being raised in the Imperial Palace has made him pretty spoiled. But if anyone's going to put him in his place, it's our Helena. She challenges him the second he steps inside. Since he didn't like her greeting, she offers him a hand to shake instead, shocking every single noble in the palace. Once a very nervous butler forces them to shake hands, Caesar uses the opportunity to try to crush her fingers. But if that's the game he wants to play, he's picked the wrong opponent. Instead of using brute force, Helena answers with her brain and adjusts her grip to target his joints. This girl really has no chill. Not wanting to admit he had just got beaten by a little girl, the prince doesn't make a fuss and walks away with his butler on the promise of a rematch. And just like that, they were enemies for life. It's going to be one long summer. Once the welcome is over, Helena gets a firm talking to from her mother. Not only did she disrespect an heir to the throne, but she isolated a kid who recently lost his mother. He doesn't have a lot of friends his age, so the Duchess asks her daughter to be kind to Caesar. Reluctantly, Helena agrees. Despite her opinion of the prince, it seems clear that after the death of his mother, the empress, his position in the imperial hierarchy has become a little shaky. It seems like the youngest son has been sent away to protect him from any opposition in the palace. Speak of the devil, Caesar is waiting in the hallway when she comes out of being lectured by her mother. He seems a lot calmer than before and tells her not to worry about earlier. I guess he's trying to play the gracious superior card, but when Helena assures him she wasn't worried at all, he suddenly blows his top again. Ugh! Anyone else kind of hate this kid already? Helena puts him in his place by revealing that she knows why he's been sent here. After all, he can't really call himself superior when the Pereska family are the ones protecting him. The prince's arrogance disappears after that. He's well aware that he's a difficult guest to accept. By taking him in, the Pereska family risks becoming an enemy of the new first Empress Valere. He apologizes for getting them involved in this political mess and tells her there's no need for superficial hospitality. Wait, is that what he was trying to say earlier? Did Helena start a war for no reason? For the first time in both her lives, Helena Pereska made a mistake. She tries not to dwell on it, but when her brother brings it up during training a week later, she gets a little defensive. Leonard is such a sweetheart. He feels sympathy for the prince because of his lonely and competitive upbringing. So for his sake, she agrees to go and reconcile with Caesar. Well, that's what she tells him. What she's actually doing is going to scout out the competition during the prince's training with his swordmaster Hamilton. As usual, no one suspects a little girl. They let Helena watch their session, allowing her to discover that the prince is a genius? No, seriously, his reflexes and focus are amazing for their age. It's clear he's a natural talent, just like Dante Renatos in her previous life. At this rate, Leonard won't stand a chance. How the heck is she going to beat him? The teacher seems impressed too. Maybe the prince is trying extra hard to show off to Helena? After watching him spar, she hasn't been able to find a single flaw in his strategy. So out of curiosity, she asks him to fight her instead, thinking it might be easier to spot potential weaknesses in person. Of course, both the teacher and the prince are floored, and they don't want to take the blame if she gets hurt. So Helena switches tactics and offers him a bet. Whoever wins can tell the loser to do whatever they like, no complaints allowed. Obviously, Caesar can't say no to an offer like that, so the poor teacher stands by while the two of them draw swords, each as determined as the other. Is it just me, or is anyone else kind of excited? I genuinely don't know who's going to win. The match begins. Helena's strategy is to find his weaknesses, which means she needs to try as many different attacks as possible to test him. She strikes first in an area that's very hard to defend, but the prince blocks her immediately. He counterattacks right away, keeping Helena on her toes as she is forced to defend. The prince can tell she's no beginner, but he's not one to back down from a fight. Helena isn't either, but she's still just a child, an untrained one who is younger than him. She doesn't have the stamina or strength that he has built up over the years. So instead, she uses some field techniques that you would never find in the classroom. But instead of dodging, the prince takes the hit head on and blocks it with his arm. Dude, if this was a real fight, you would have just got skewered. While Helena is still shocked at his reflexes, he strikes back, stopping just short of her neck when the teacher calls the match. Poor guy probably thinks they're both mutants. Before either of them can get seriously hurt, he calls it a draw. Neither one is satisfied without a victory, but the prince does acknowledge her skill and says it was the most fun he's had in ages. Helena doesn't show it, but she enjoyed it too. Now she's found a diamond in the rough, a new project to take on and teach. Although, judging by that match, he could teach her a few things too. That evening, the Pereska family sit down for dinner without the prince. Apparently, he's tired and decided to skip the meal. Did he get hurt by her blow? Or is he practicing in secret for a rematch? Thinking it's the first, Helena visits his room after dinner to check in on him. She opens the door to find him in a sling and freaks out. It's not broken at least, and Caesar seems to be in good spirits. Actually, he's really enjoying Helena's guilty expression. Helena tells him not to take his injury lightly. She broke a finger before, and it only caused her more pain down the road. Obviously, that's kind of a weird thing for a 10-year-old to reveal, and she does a very poor job of pretending that it happened during playtime and not blocking an opponent's sword in her past life. She's surprised that he didn't tell everyone it was Helena who hurt him. If they were really enemies, it would be the perfect chance to get her in trouble. But Caesar says he doesn't hate her, and besides, he wouldn't be so petty. Finally, these kids are starting to realize they're better off as allies than enemies. He also knew that she held back her strength in that last blow. When she saw him raising his arm, she pulled back as much as possible. Who knows what she could have really done if she went all in? Caesar asks what wish she would have made if she'd won. Helena, of course, wanted to make him her personal slave and have him do tasks for her, which infuriates the prince. At first, he refuses to tell her what his wish was, but after a little well-placed taunting, he gives in. His only wish was for them to call each other by their names instead of their titles. Oh my god, that's so sweet! But isn't he a little thick? Such a good opportunity, and all he wanted was that? I guess he feels extra lonely having people bow and scrape and call him prince all the time. Of all people, Helena understands that feeling from her days as empress. Even Arez, Caesar's ancestor, refused to call her by name. So she agrees to be less formal between them, and after that, things get a little calmer. They can't practice swordsmanship while his arm is healing, so instead they play cards with Leonard every day. As you can imagine, it's a little boring after a few days, so one stormy night, Hamilton decides to tell them a ghost story. Supposedly, the Duke Pereska's mansion is haunted by a mysterious girl dressed in blue. On summer nights, when a sudden storm rolls in, she can be found in the basement. Or so the legend goes. Helena thinks this is a load of bull, but the boys are convinced. Hamilton is having the time of his life making them sweat when a butler steps in and calls him away. Caesar, being the brave soul that he is, suggests they go down there and find out for themselves, but Helena refuses. But one way or another, she gets dragged along, mainly because the prince accused her of being a scaredy cat. They're like copies of each other, these two. The Duke has had the basement locked up, so Helena pulls out a hairpin and picks the lock. She literally says out loud that she used to do this all the time in her past life, but somehow it goes right over the boys' heads. Idiots. Leonard leads them down to find a stream running through a dark tunnel. It doesn't look like anything special until a pale figure emerges from the shadows. The boys freak out and drag Helena back upstairs before she can get a good look. And then they run screaming through the mansion, waking everybody up and yelling about the ghost. They're still kids, I guess. So naturally, they get punished for sneaking downstairs. After debriefing about their midnight adventure, Helena assures the kids that the figure was nothing more than an illusion in the darkness. But Hamilton tells him later that it's a reflection of the tiles laid along the bottom of the stream. I bet he thoroughly enjoyed winding them up, though. By the time Caesar's arm has nearly healed, the summer solstice festival is in full swing in Alpenthus, the town near the Duke's mansion. The prince is very keen to go and explore, but Helena isn't interested. According to her, only kids and thieves enjoy festivals. Considering she's been both, I'm surprised she isn't more keen. Hamilton won't let Caesar go alone, so innocent little Leonard suggests they all go together, completely ignoring the furious look on his sister's face. As soon as they're in town, the prince ditches Hamilton and the other servants. But it doesn't take long for Helena to notice that someone is following them. I mean, 3 well-dressed kids walking around unaccompanied are a pretty easy target. But when Helena makes eye contact with her stalker, she finds a man with blonde hair. He doesn't seem like a kidnapper. Actually, he seems concerned. He suddenly dashes out of sight, so the little Duchess follows him through the alleys. The man suddenly appears behind her and introduces himself as No. Little bit sus that he just appeared out of nowhere. Is this guy some kind of crook? No says he's been searching for her for some time. He seems to believe that she is the reincarnated form of his king, someone he clearly worships. But whether he knows the truth or is just a raving lunatic remains to be seen. He mysteriously vanishes, promising to visit her again, just as the boys catch up with her. The prince, as usual, is being a drama queen, going off about how dangerous it is for her to walk around alone. Helena assures them nothing happened, so Caesar runs back to get Hamilton in the carriage. But as soon as he leaves, Helena gets a sense that she's no longer being watched the way she was before. And that can mean only one thing. Someone is after the prince. A quick search for Caesar confirms their suspicions. He is nowhere to be found. Helena suspects he's been taken to a brothel. Since they're not open in the day, it's a perfect hiding spot. Without even thinking, she runs off to find the brothel, telling her brother to go and get Hamilton. He seems nervous to leave her alone. Actually, as her older brother, he definitely shouldn't be leaving her alone. But Helena is determined, and she is not going to do anything stupid. After finding a suspicious-looking spot, she picks a lock and enters through the back door. She overhears a conversation between 2 people talking about how to stab a person. So, I'm gonna take a wild guess that these are the guys she's looking for. They're clearly planning a murder and trying to make it look like an accident. Helena peeks through the door to spot Caesar tied up in the corner. He is putting on a brave face, but his captors aren't bothered. It's pretty obvious they've been hired by someone in the royal family to get rid of him and ensure the line of succession changes in their favor. If that's the case, Helena has to act right now. Deciding her best bet is a distraction, she grabs a chair and slams it into the floor, drawing one of the men out into the corridor. Armed with nothing but a broken chair leg, Helena enters the room like a true hero, striking him right in the knee. She grabs Caesar, but they run into the other man outside. The only option now is to run for their lives. Literally. They're barely inches from the door when another, even bigger man appears on the other side, stopping them in their tracks. He draws a sword, and Helena gets ready to do what she can with her chair leg. Then suddenly, Caesar steps in front and blocks her, taking a slash to the back. Oh my god! I can't believe they're doing this to kids! This is so dark! Helena can't leave him, so she does what she's best at, standing her ground and fighting. When Leonard and Hamilton arrive, they find the captors already taken care of and lying in pools of their own blood. Okay, when did this series get so metal? Our heroine just became a murderer at 10. After the incident, Helena spends 3 days in bed. She sprained her ankle and damaged some arm muscles, which is probably just what happens when you use adult sword fighting techniques in a tiny body. It turns out Helena did not kill the kidnappers, thankfully, so they were taken to the capital to be punished. And best of all, Caesar was okay in the end. 2 days after her recovery, Helena finally has to face the music when her father calls her into his office. He seems hella mad, but really he doesn't know what to do with her. It's clear by now that Helena is no ordinary kid. Hamilton already wants to take her to the capital to train her natural talents. So he gives her a choice. She can stay in the duchy and live the quiet life she always wanted, or she can once again choose the path of blood and glory. And she decides to choose neither? The only thing she really enjoys is teaching her brother to sword fight, so for now, that's her focus. After that, she goes to visit Caesar, but gets stuck at the door. I mean, what do you even say to someone who risked their life for you? She's still tormenting herself when the prince appears beside her. Startled, she follows him into his bedroom and asks about his injury. He tells her it still hurts, but it will be healed up soon enough. Instead of her original plan to thank him for saving her life, Helena starts teasing him about how it will leave an ugly scar and he won't be able to get married. Well, isn't that sweet? Caesar gets embarrassed, saying that if the scar really does affect his marriage, then she'll have to take care of him instead. Helena is enjoying the joke, but does anyone else suspect that he's not entirely kidding? But after the laughter dies out, Helena asks if he's been struggling to sleep since he looks so tired. It seems the poor prince has been too scared to get any rest. And who can blame him? Whoever sent those kidnappers was someone from the Imperial family, someone living at the palace that he will eventually return to. Would you be able to sleep knowing your own family was after you? It's all way too heavy for a 14-year-old, and that's before the trauma of the whole nearly being murdered thing. In a bizarre attempt to comfort him, Helena says he wouldn't be safe even if he gave up the throne. Nice job, Helena. That'll cheer him up. But as someone who has experience fighting for a throne, she knows that his only real option is to claim his birthright. If he's still in line of the position of emperor, then there will always be people to protect him. So really, he has no choice but to fight back. Obviously, that's easier said than done, and Caesar's confidence is shaken. So Helena reassures him that she will support him and stand at his side while he grows stronger. She'll help him become the emperor. Well, that's a few steps away from a peaceful life tutoring her brother, but I hope she sticks to her promise. I want to see Dante back in action. That night, Helena sleeps beside the prince, allowing him to get the first good night's sleep since the incident. A few days later, the wound healed up, leaving a scar just like Helena predicted. Hamilton desperately wanted to take her to the capital and hone her skills, but her father refused. So in the end, the Pereska family bid the prince a farewell after a very eventful summer. After their goodbye, Caesar asks the Duke if he can visit every summer so that Helena can teach him how to fight. He agrees and they shake hands, promising to remain as master and student until he climbs to the height of emperor. What a difference from their first meeting! 3 years later, the Pereska siblings receive a letter from Caesar telling them to prepare the guest room for his arrival again this summer. No hi, how have you been? It looks like he's gained back all his arrogance in the last 3 years, but at least he's survived. The old trio will once again be reunited, no longer as kids, but as 17-year-olds. Oh, yeah, we're definitely gonna get some romance this summer, I can feel it. Helena has been diligently teaching Leonard how to fight for the last 3 years. He's won a few local competitions and moved on to some more serious blades, not those little wooden ones they use for practice. Helena has just picked up a new pair of swords for them both, some very shiny silver ones. It's not just Leonard's reputation that has improved. Helena is now a highly sought tutor, even by people who used to call her stupid and who said a little girl could never be a swordsmanship teacher. She sure proved them wrong. As she's leaving the shop with the blades, a girl with blue hair suddenly bumps into her and sprints off in the other direction. From her days as Dante, the princess knows immediately that she's had her valuables stolen. Though, I don't know how the heck that kid emptied her pockets in the 2 seconds they made contact. Of course, it's Helena, so instead of calling some guards, she runs after the thief herself. It doesn't take her long to find a group of scoundrels in a back alley, and among them is the blue-haired girl. She listens in on their conversation and discovers that there's more to the situation than it seems. The girl is actually a member of a noble family herself, so the thugs want to hold her for ransom. Instead of her family having to pay a huge sum, the girl is trying to steal and beg in order to pay it off herself a little at a time. Maybe that means her family didn't want to pay the ransom? Is she an illegitimate child? If that's the case, then this is going to get very personal for Helena, since she was in this exact position in her past life. While the thugs are beating the little girl, she swoops down and takes back the wallet. All it takes is stomping on the leader's toes, and suddenly they've all run away screaming. What a bunch of babies. But little Miss Bluehair won't give up so easily. She grabs a pair of rocks and launches at Helena, fighting to get the wallet back. Seeing her desperation, Helena proposes a bet. If the girl can hit her just one time, she will give over the wallet. But if she surrenders first, then the girl must become Helena's subordinate. Of course, the second she starts fighting back with her sword, the girl gives up and gets on her knees. After asking a few questions, Helena discovers that she's called Terra, a name given to her by the Count before he threw her and her mother out of the estate. Helena can't stand the idea of her walking around with a name given by her horrible father, so she gives the girl a new one, Aagot. And from now on, Aagot will be her personal servant, which is a heck of a lot better than living on the streets and stealing to survive. The next day, Aagot is already in uniform and grinning from ear to ear. She's only 12, but she's a fast learner, so everyone takes a liking to her straight away. The only thing is, she's a little overeager. She literally wants to do everything for Helena, even down to feeding her at dinner time. When it comes to swordsmanship, Helena finally draws a line and tells Aagot to stay out of the practice area. Leonard has noticed how obedient her new servant is and warns his sister that she and the prince definitely won't get along. Helena tries to ignore the creeping sense that he might be right. The day comes when Caesar finally arrives, and boy, has he grown up. After something of a growth spurt, he looks like a man, not a boy. He jokes that Helena seems smaller than last year, earning a nice sharp punch to the stomach. I think he deserved that one. Once he's recovered from the sucker punch, Caesar notices Aagot, who is already clinging protectively to her mistress. Just like Leonard said, he seems irritated already, but Helena doesn't take his complaints too seriously. She's busy staring at his thighs. No, literally, and she's not ashamed to admit it either. She honestly might have reached out to give them a squeeze if Aagot hadn't arrived just in time with their tea. Seconds later, the prince and the servant are screaming at each other about who knows what. Helena tells them not to squabble over her. Aagot leaves the room with a smile, thinking she won that round, although I'm pretty sure there are no winners here. Anyway, it makes Caesar so desperate to get back in Helena's good books that he offers to let her touch his thigh. Oh dear, they really have grown up. Although she seems like a total pervert, Helena is genuinely just impressed at his muscle definition. She doesn't seem to realizing that rubbing her hand all over a teenage boy's thighs is not the most normal thing in the world, until she suddenly looks up and realizes they're only inches apart. Helena suddenly sprints out of the room with a bright red face. Is this the first time she's ever been embarrassed? In both her lives? After that, Helena does her best to avoid the prince completely. She's gone from being the ice queen with no feelings to someone who's too scared to even make eye contact, which is kind of awkward since she's meant to be his teacher during the summers. After a few days of running away and hiding, Helena tells herself to get it together. That night, Caesar appears beneath her window, throwing rocks to catch her attention. Aww, he's such a romantic. Immediately, she tries to go back inside, but he begs her to stay and talk for a bit. After getting her permission, he climbs inside her bedroom and explains that he had to come from outside because Aagot was guarding her door. Of course she was. Caesar seems to think that he's done something wrong since she's been avoiding him the past few days. Helena assures him she doesn't hate him, it's just, he's changed. I mean, look at the man. He's grown so much he's practically a different person now. Of course that's going to be weird for a childhood friend. But the prince admits that he's been nervous about this summer. He's only here for 3 months, and after that, he'll be an adult. He's worried that Leonard and Helena will forget all about him once they grow up and start their own lives. Touched by his concern, Helena takes his hand and promises never to abandon her pupil. Hardly seconds later, he's totally over it and curls up under her blanket to go to sleep. He doesn't have a shred of self-awareness. They're grown up now, so sharing a bed is very different to when they were younger. But Caesar is pushy, and after all, she did just promise not to run away. So I guess she has no choice. Just like in the old days, the prince is comforted by her presence and falls asleep almost instantly, mumbling some kind of apology for getting taller. Wow, this kid may be handsome, but he's such an idiot. There's no way he's really that innocent. Now that they've reconnected, swordsmanship class is just as vicious and demanding as before. Caesar is improving rapidly, as expected of someone with his natural talents. But it means Helena has to constantly revise all the lesson plans, since he's advancing at a rate far beyond her expectations. One person who knows better than anyone how that feels is Hamilton, who is proud to see her working so hard. He's also just grateful for Helena being such a good friend to Caesar. When he spends his summer at the Pereska estate, he is free to laugh and act his own age, unlike at the palace. Back there, he's known as the Grey Wolf. He trusts no one and doesn't let anyone get close to him. Hamilton even admits that there have been attempts on his life, but asks Helena to keep that a secret. I guess things are much harder for Caesar than he's letting on. But he's never let any of it get to him. Hamilton truly believes that the only reason he's still so determined to become the emperor is because of Helena and her promise all those years ago. It kinda makes her worried. He's done so far to achieve his dream, but was she too hasty to swear her loyalty? After all, her goal for this life was peace and quiet. Getting wrapped up with the politics of the Imperial family is the exact opposite. Helena calls Caesar to a private room that night for a special session. She wants to teach him some tricks that aren't quite so honorable without her brother around to see. Without any warning, she launches at him, nearly slicing off his shoulder. Caesar is flustered, trying to keep up with all the new moves and tactics she throws his way. He does his best for a few minutes, but in the end, Helena has him disarmed and wins the first round. The next one is just as brutal. A surprise hit with the brunt of her sword leaves him shaking on the ground. While he is looking up at her in shock, Helena tells him that she won't be satisfied until he could kill her himself. Kinda metal, but I guess hearing about his attempted assassinations really shook her. Seeing her determination gives Caesar a boost, so he grabs his sword and they go again. They continue their special training sessions throughout the summer. Caesar grows day by day despite the incredible effort it takes just to keep up with his master. And during that time, Aagot and the prince continue their intense rivalry. While Helena is having tea one day, Aagot voices her suspicions, claiming that Caesar has dark intentions towards her. Really? The same guy who begged to snuggle in bed with her the other week? I'm not so sure. But Aagot is also jealous of the time they spend together during swordsmanship class. So Helena offers to send her to a school for training, completely missing the point her servant is going for. Although she doesn't want to take on any more students, Leonard could do with a sparring partner closer to his skill level when Caesar leaves. So she promises to teach Aagot herself once Caesar leaves, warning that if she doesn't catch up with Leonard in 1 year, she'll be sent to swordsmanship school. Sounds kind of harsh if you ask me, but if anyone has the determination to do something so impossible, it's Aagot. By the end of the summer, Helena has managed to teach Caesar all the dirtier tricks she knows and can send him back to the palace with the knowledge that he'll be safe from any more attacks. Things go back to normal at the Pereska estate, and for a while, Helena enjoys peace and quiet with her brother and servant. But then, 5 months later, a woman arrives at the estate and turns everything upside down. A lady named Rowena Evergreen is sent on behalf of Prince Caesar to deliver 2 letters, one for each of the siblings. I'm not sure what they could say that's so important for Rowena to come herself, but she informs them that if this invitation is shared with anyone else, the prince will run away immediately. The letters are actually invitations to Caesar's coronation ceremony. The Pereskas actually found this out several days ago. Coronations are usually at the beginning of the year, but this one is going to take place this winter. Apparently, Caesar wanted his birthday and coronation to be celebrated at the same time. Helena was hoping she wouldn't get an invite. She and Leonard are technically too young to attend big events like this. And besides, she doesn't want the hassle of going to the capital. She says the same thing to Rowena, excluding the bit about not being bothered, of course. That's when the lady asks her to take another look at the invitation letter. In small print at the very bottom, it says that if Helena refuses to come, he will tell everyone about the time she asked to touch his thigh. Wow, he's actually done it. He's outplayed his master. Furious, Helena decides to go after all, mainly because she wants to strangle him herself. That's when Rowena announces the second reason for her arrival. The Imperial staff have already prepared a few outfit options for her. Seems cute, but I have a feeling it's really so that Helena can't use the excuse that she doesn't have time to have a dress made. Since this is technically Helena and Leonard's first introduction to noble society, they need to look their very best, as well as learning all the names and families of the nobles who will be attending. Now I can see why this is such a hassle. I wouldn't want to go either. The day of the coronation finally comes around, so the whole Pereska family attend together. However, the kids aren't allowed to attend the actual coronation since it's only for very high-ranking officials. Helena's plan is to stick in the background and not make any conversation until she's allowed to go home. But within 30 minutes, someone has already spilled wine on her dress. So there goes that plan. I'm not sure if the girl meant to spill the wine or not, but now she'll have to change clothes. Before that mini disaster, Helena was doing pretty well. She's beautiful, and she's from a powerful family who have few enemies since they're not actively involved in politics. So of course she's very popular with the boys. Leonard is also doing very well with the ladies, since his reputation as a swordsman has traveled far and wide. He's probably enjoying it too, but for Helena, this is hell. She only manages to escape because her brother shoves through all the bachelors and escorts her to a quiet room. He leaves her to rest in peace, but a blonde girl named Yulika Bronte comes over to introduce herself. She seems all sugary sweet, but the Brontes are the first Empress's family, the one who has the most interest in killing Caesar. It's kind of suspicious that members of her family would show up to his coronation in the first place, so Helena treats Yulika with caution. At first, they make small talk about how she's so close with Caesar, but then Yulika leans close and asks in a whisper what her relationship with the prince is. Before Helena has a chance to respond, she spilled red wine all down her dress and made a big fuss. What a sneaky girl! She even has an extra dress prepared and offers it to Helena. Of course, the spare is going to be horrible, so instead of giving in and accepting it, she throws the remainder of the wine in Yulika's face. You go, Helena. Don't let them disrespect you like that. Now that she's covered in wine, Helena gently suggests she wear the spare dress instead. Oh, how the tables have turned. The ladies look mortified when they realize that not only has their joke backfired, but they've now made an enemy of the girl closest to the crown prince and even ruined the dress he picked out for her. She's literally the one person you do not want to irritate. How stupid can you be? Helena attempts to remove the stain in a different restroom, but it won't come out, which is kind of a relief to a girl who's been looking for an escape route all evening. But she can't stop thinking about the Bronte girl. Besides her closeness with Caesar, what reason would she have to make an enemy of the Pereska family? Maybe she has a crush on the prince? But whatever she was planning, Yulika clearly failed. Someone in the hall announces the arrival of the crown prince Caesar, but still, Helena remains inside. She stands by the window as snow begins to fall, thinking of the days when she was emperor herself. She's just closing the window when suddenly another pair of hands appear beside her. Caesar has somehow escaped his own coronation to surprise her. Oh my god, is anyone else getting butterflies? Helena is kind of shocked that he's not literally being crowned right now. I mean, it's his party. Doesn't he kind of have a responsibility to go and see his guests? But as usual, his number one priority is Helena. She, on the other hand, was determined to wring his neck for forcing her to come to this silly party. But seeing him so exhausted from his duties, she doesn't have the heart. She makes another offhand comment about his height, so Caesar leans down to her level. And like any girl when confronted with a very handsome man only inches away, Helena freaks out. I mean, shoving his face away probably isn't the tactic I would have gone for personally, but anyway. Helena jokes that since she's the master, it would be better for him to kneel. So he does. The crown prince of the empire gets down on one knee in front of her. How is she not blushing right now? Too embarrassed to say it to his face, Helena covers his eyes and wishes him a happy birthday and thanks him for being born. Then he takes her hands, stands up, and tells her he was only born for Helena. Oh my god, I'm losing my mind. How is she still not getting the message? After the coronation, the whole empire got 3 days of holiday. While other people were probably out partying, Helena just wants to stay home and sleep. Leonard has his heart set on becoming a knight, so he'll be busy visiting their troop. That should mean Helena gets her peace and quiet. If only a certain crown prince didn't show up at her doorstep the very next day. Rightfully, Helena yells at him for taking so much time off as a royal. Seriously, why does he have this much free time? She tries to shove him out of the house, but he ends up asking her to spend time with him as a birthday present. And then she's stuck. Since his only other birthday wish is for a villa by the sea, it looks like they'll be spending the day together. And of course, Caesar wants to be as public as possible. They go all around town looking at clothes for Helena, even though it's supposed to be his birthday present. She asks him why when they stop for cakes and tea, but the prince just says it's more fun buying things for her. While he literally sits and stares at her with a sappy smile, Helena tries to ignore him. The conversation then turns to the party, where he asks if she met anybody. He's obviously fishing to see if any boys caught her attention, but Helena mentions Yulika Bronte instead. Since she's probably an uncomfortable topic for the prince, she doesn't explain what happened and changes the topic by giving Caesar his real birthday present. It's nothing too fancy, just a cable knit scarf. But by the look of Caesar's face, you would think it was a bar of gold. Anyway, Helena isn't very good at knitting, so it's a little rough around the edges. But the crown prince puts it on straight away and says it's his favorite gift of all. Kind of hard to believe when he was probably being given horses and jewels and mansions in the mountains, but it's just another sign that he's head over heels for Helena. I only wish she would open her eyes and see it! That night, Helena is heading home by carriage, enjoying the scenery of the city by night. Since she lives in the rural countryside, this is a rare occasion to take the sights of her old home. After all, this is where she lived as an emperor 500 years ago, but somehow it hasn't changed much. Caesar is asleep across from her. He's so tired that he doesn't wake when she calls him, so she scoots over to wake him up. At the most convenient moment possible, the carriage goes over a stone, throwing the two of them together. It looked like Caesar was on top of Helena and their faces bumped together. It could have been so romantic, but both of them seem more hurt than anything. Another perfect moment ruined. Caesar seems just as frustrated as us readers. Wait, did he engineer that whole setup so that they could kiss? Surely not. When they arrive at the Duke's city residence, Helena literally sprints out of the carriage, not wanting to spend another second in awkward silence with the prince. But as soon as she's in the house, Leonard notices that her lip is bruised and swollen. Uh-oh. I mean, I wouldn't believe the truth if I heard it, so I can't blame her for being nervous. She ends up lying, saying that she bit her own lip in the carriage. The fact that she's bright red and shaking is a whole nother thing, but she brushes it off and heads to her bedroom to sleep off the humiliation. 2 days later, a storm sinks the whole capital in snow, blocking off any chance for Helena to head home as scheduled. Her lip is also still swollen. Actually, it's much worse, which makes it extra confusing that Caesar and Hamilton pop round for a visit that morning. Like, does this kid not have any brains at all? Their swollen lips are literally matching. Anyone with eyes could see what happened. Hamilton is complaining about how Caesar doesn't take his job as crown prince seriously, so Helena takes his side. Because she's mad at him, obviously. They make a good team until Hamilton mentions that Caesar disappeared one night and came back with a swollen lip. Oh god. Because he's not a total idiot, Hamilton slowly puts 2 and 2 together, which isn't hard when the kids are overreacting at every little comment. Luckily, he's easily distracted when Helena tells him about a famous book in their collection. As they head off to look at it, the crown prince asks to come with and gets shot down. Helena gives him a look which clearly says, "Stop being an idiot, we need to be apart." So instead, he stares moodily out the window. Such a drama queen, that kid. Meanwhile, in the library, Hamilton is nerding out over some old books with nice handwriting. What a weirdo. While he mumbles to himself, Helena can't stop thinking about the look Caesar gave her before she left. He looked hurt, but whether it was to cover up the injury or because he was actually upset is hard to tell. While pondering it, Helena complains aloud about Caesar showing up again to bother her. Hamilton admits that actually it was his plan to come here today. Yes, he wanted to complain about their mutual pain in the butt, but he also wanted to see Caesar relax a little. The coronation has caused a lot of stress, so he brought his young master to Helena for a moment of rest. Hamilton also admits that the coronation was rushed ahead of schedule because the Imperial consort is about to become the first empress. That puts Caesar in a dangerous position. If she becomes empress, then her son will go after the crown prince title and try to take it from Caesar. This also sheds some light on the Duke of Pereska's activities. Up until now, they have been neutral in Imperial politics, but the Duke has been attending lots of social meetings lately, and Helena didn't know why. Now she does. Her father has officially taken Caesar's side. Maybe that's why Ulika had the nerve to be so rude to her? Because they're on opposite sides of the political battlefield? Ugh, it's all so confusing. Helena asks Hamilton why he would trust her with this information. He says it's just a reward for showing him the book, but it's clearly more than that. Since she was young, Hamilton has always treated her as a grown-up and tried to bring her into Imperial life. Even now, he offers to be her informant about matters in the city that she's too far away to hear. I guess he trusts her and wants to keep her by Caesar's side. Speaking of the crown prince, when Helena returns from the library, she finds him fast asleep by the window. He really only sleeps when he's near her, doesn't he? She gives him a bonk on the head to wake him up and jokes that she was about to draw on his face. Then, very suddenly, things get quiet and serious between them. Caesar reaches out to touch her face, murmuring that her wound still hasn't healed. And then, without any warning, he kisses her. Ah! I can't believe it finally happened! But, not to ruin the moment, buddy, but I don't think that's the way to heal a swollen lip. While she's still reeling, Caesar asks if it's okay for them to kiss. Hey, Mr. Prince, you usually ask permission before you do the thing. Helena says the same thing, but Caesar doesn't care. He's already halfway to her lips when he says that he's going to do it again. Oh my god, this got steamy so quick. Wasn't it only a few chapters ago that they were kids? Knowing Helena, she's going to rationalize all the romance out of this immediately. A few days later, the snow clears, so Leonard and Helena can return to the Duke of Pereska's estate. Hamilton and Rowena come to see them off. The only person who isn't there is Caesar. Apparently, Aagot refused to let him visit because, of course she did. As they're rolling away in the carriage, Helena quietly admits how much she wanted to see him one last time before they went home. The prince is slowly melting this Ice Queen's heart, and I'm so here for it. Suddenly, we speed up to 3 summers after the coronation. Leonard has impressed the Knights Commander and is now training to join them, so he only gets to meet his sister once a month. Caesar came to visit every summer just like before, but these days he can't stay long. Aagot is obsessed with her sword practice and fights all day until her hands are swollen. The 4th summer after the coronation, Caesar returns to the Pereska estate with an invitation to the Imperial family's swordsmanship competition. In past years, only knights could join, but this year there's no restriction on who can enter. He's clearly fishing for Helena to join, but she suggests Aagot have a go instead. Of course, the prince himself will be fighting. Ever since the Grey family took over the throne from Emperor Dante, the prince has had to participate in every competition. And when Helena finds out that the prince will be competing, she agrees to accompany her pupils to the capital for the competition. Why do I feel like this will only end in disaster? That evening, Caesar is about to leave when Helena catches him on the doorstep. Ever since their kiss 3 years ago, things have been awkward between them. Neither of them ever mentioned it again, and now, because he's so busy, their relationship is starting to fade. Not too much, though. As he's leaving, Caesar suddenly turns back to give Helena a hug and asks her to give him energy for the trials ahead. It's cute, but is anyone else wondering how things got so slow? How could they have a kiss like that and then just ignore it for 3 years? Anyway, a month later, the competition arrives. Helena and Leonard venture to the capital to participate along with Aagot, who is fascinated by every little thing. She's never been to the city before and never seen all the glitz and glamour of the palace and the streets. She's so adorable. Helena finds it so sweet that she buys Aagot lots of presents, which only makes her fighting spirit more intense. With all of Helena's disciples participating, the winner is surely going to be among the 3 of them. After their little shopping trip, Helena slips away to meet Caesar for a while. She doesn't tell Leonard where she's going, but to be honest, doesn't she only have 3 friends? It's not hard to guess. She arrives at a restaurant, but it's Hamilton that she meets first. She wants information on the Bronte family, specifically the activities of the first empress. Hamilton starts with the basics. As she's probably guessed, the emperor is trying to make her own son Fran the emperor. For once, Caesar is in a strong position. They can't just switch the crown prince, so instead they're trying to get one of their own people to be crowned princess, and you'll never guess who they picked. It's Julika, of course. Clearly, the time to talk about Caesar's engagement has finally arrived. Hamilton says that they have enough power to make Helena the crown princess instead, but she refuses. She has no interest in being empress, since she's already been the emperor, and she hates socializing. Honestly, she would be the worst person for the job. But that still won't make it any easier for her to watch someone else marry her prince. Helena shoves all the thought of marriage deep down, focusing on the competition ahead. The crowds are heaving, but luckily the noble seating is 1 floor above. What isn't quite so lucky is that the person who takes the seat beside Helena is the woman of the hour, Miss Julika Bronte. After their last encounter, she's scared to death of the Pereska princess, but Helena finds the whole situation highly amusing and won't let her switch seats. For all intents and purposes, Helena is perfectly polite. But really, she's watching Julika closely, wondering how someone so skittish is going to survive in the Imperial family. Soon, the final round of fighting begins. Aagot loses her match, but she still performed admirably and got a lot of attention from the crowd. Next up is Leonard, who wins his match with a single move. Damn, he's good! The last man to compete is the prince, who ruthlessly defeats his enemies without any hesitation. The crowd seem a little more afraid of him than impressed, but I guess that makes sense since he uses Helena's personal fighting style. The final match is between Caesar and Leonard. They fight fiercely and put on a good show for the nobles, but in the end, as you probably expected, Caesar wins. The girls all go crazy, especially Lady Bronte, who is practically obsessed with him. As the victor, Caesar is given a wreath. Tradition dictates that he should give it to the lady in his heart. Uh-oh, this is about to get super awkward. He marches right up to Julika, who is waiting expectantly while Helena pretends not to pay attention. Julika congratulates the prince wholeheartedly and says she believed in him from the start. Caesar smiles back warmly while the empress watches on with a smug smile. He takes the wreath from his head, but it doesn't go to Julika. It goes to Helena. Oh god, okay, I love the romance, but now I'm mega stressed. Isn't the empress going to throw a fit? Caesar loudly proclaims that his victory belongs to his master. So now I'm not sure if this was a romantic gesture or a sign of his thanks. After that, rumors start to fly between the nobles of Helena's talent. Everyone is wondering if she'll return his affection, but they're also wondering what will happen to Lady Bronte now. Behind closed doors, Helena is already teaching her pupil a lesson. While polishing her sword in front of him, he is already apologizing for the crime he has committed by throwing her into the limelight and causing her a whole host of problems. He sure is well trained. Besides the rumors, Helena is also upset because she thinks he's using her in his war against the Empress. But he earns her sympathy again by complaining that he was only trying to show her the results of her teaching. Somehow, Helena gets whipped up into reassuring him that it's fine. She's grateful for the wreath and even admits that he deserves a reward. Oh god, bestie, you're so easily fooled! Delighted, Caesar immediately perks up and gives her a kiss on the hand, telling her he'll be waiting eagerly for her reward. When she's telling the story to Leonard later, he seems just as impressed by the prince's manipulative tactics. He also hands her a letter with the royal seal, but it's not from Caesar. It's from the empress. Uh-oh. Villain number 1 has entered the battlefield. The envelope contains an invitation to meet the empress, which even she can't refuse. Helena arrives at the palace, prepared to deal with the consequences of Caesar's arrogance at the tournament. The empress is all polite smiles, and Helena is just as gracious in return. There's a little tension between her and Ulrica, who is also joining them for tea. The empress mistakes them for friends, but Ulrica soon sets her straight and says they're only acquaintances. I think the word she's looking for is sworn enemies, but sure, that works too, I guess. The empress makes a careful comment about the prince being fond of Helena, but she reassures Her Majesty that's not the case. She explains that the gesture of the wreath was one between teacher and student, not between lovers. Her Majesty then suggests they move to the garden so she can show off the youngest archer in the palace. She asks if Helena knows anything about archery, which, of course she does. In her past life, she was a mercenary, remember? Ulrica makes a comment about how violent her hobbies are, but Helena doesn't take the bait. It's too easy to annoy that girl, as the Empress proves by asking if Helena wants to become crown princess. Oh, it all makes sense now. The archer is a threat. The Empress wants her to swear that she has no intention of going after the title. But before she answers, Helena takes a shot at the target herself. Like everything, Helena is a natural. She hits the bullseye with such force that she splits an arrow in two, stunning her audience. She apologizes to the Empress and explains that she doesn't swear on anything. She only makes deals. This is her way of telling the Empress to back off and stop threatening her, though it's a very risky move. Ulrica flies into a rage at the insult to the crown, but instead of being angry, the Empress is impressed. She sends Ulrica off to her chamber and asks Helena to become her ally, which puts her in a difficult situation. Of course, she's on Caesar's side, but if she rejects her now, well, let's just say Her Majesty might finally lose her patience. Before she can answer, the Crown Prince himself appears at her side. It's like he has a spidey sense for political tension. I only hope he doesn't make things worse for Helena again. Caesar ended up being very hostile to his stepmother and pulled Helena away with him while the Empress continued to smile her poisonous smile. Although he probably just made things worse in the long run, Helena can't help but wonder how Caesar managed to survive growing up with such a two-faced woman for all these years. Seriously, she didn't blink once, even when threatening her. Once they're alone together, Helena offers to take his side in this political mess, which is kind of a big deal. It would mean giving up her sacred neutrality and actively helping him become emperor, even if it means making an enemy of Her Majesty. Caesar is so touched that he buries his face in his hands. The next morning is Helena's last before she returns to the duchy, so she meets Hamilton once before leaving. They sit down for tea, during which Helena asks if he is still willing to be her man on the inside for all matters related to the Imperial family. His answer is yes, but not if she intends to break down the relationship between the Crown Prince and the Empress. Of course, that's not her aim. She hands him a list of the nobles and families who have sent her invitations to various gatherings and parties. She wants to know which to accept and which to decline in order to build support for Caesar, which is quite the gesture. We all know by now how much she hates socializing. But the Crown Prince needs more nobles on his side, and trustworthy ones, so she's willing to do what must be done for his sake. Aww, deep down Helena is a romantic at heart. Deep, deep down. The conversation moves on to a strange new religion beginning to emerge in the Empire. They're said to worship dragons, and though they're only small at the moment, they're gaining traction among the commoners. Hamilton doesn't seem worried about it, but as the Emperor Dante, who slayed the great dragon of a legend, a part of her feels sad to sit by and live as Helena instead of the great hero she once was. Exactly 2 days later, Hamilton returns the list of nobles, distinguishing friendly from foe. She visits them all personally and begins to slowly build up a network of useful connections. The following summer, Ulrica Bronte's birthday party is announced, and Helena, of course, gets an invite, though I bet she wishes she didn't. This is her coming-of-age party, and since it's an event held by the Empress's relatives, it's a good opportunity to observe the enemy, so to speak. She was hoping Leonard might accompany her as backup, but he's busy. So on the day of the party, she attends only with Hamilton. Still, he is a very good companion and knows all the rituals of high society. He leads her over as soon as they arrive to wish Ulrica a happy birthday and deliver the present her family brought. With Hamilton's help, they manage to make a fool of her in the most subtle way, embarrassing Yulika in front of all her other guests. You know, honestly, I can kind of see why she hates Helena. But as the party wears on, Helena finds it harder and harder to make conversation. Hamilton is busy chatting with the guests, so she takes a step back to observe instead. On a trip to the restroom, she stumbles upon a small but very ornate library and gets caught taking a peek inside by none other than the birthday girl. Uh-oh. It turns out it actually belongs to Yulika, though she hasn't read most of the books yet. Wait, is it just to make her look smart? She starts showing off about all the magical theorems she has studied, but as usual, Helena isn't bothered. Actually, it's kind of endearing. While talking about her passions, Yulika's eyes shine brighter than spotlights. For once, she sincerely praises the host for her endeavor to learn, causing an awkward silence between them as Yulika tries to digest the compliment. Instead of just saying thank you like a normal person, she scolds Helena for snooping around her house and sends her back on her way. But as Helena walks away, she wonders briefly what it might be like to be Yulika Bronte's friend. Redemption arc, anybody? Autumn soon arrives, marking Helena's impending birthday. After Yulika's extravagant display, the Pereska family and their allies are determined to throw a ball twice as luxurious. They're even talking about digging another pond. Helena is the only one who isn't excited, but it seems her servants have something to prove. There's also one question of whether Caesar will attend. He didn't come to Yulika's party, so it would be making something of a statement if he did. Then again, he doesn't have the time these days to attend festivities, so Helena didn't even bother to send him an invite. There's no point aggravating the Empress for no reason. A week before the grand party, Leonard arrives home from the academy. He looks even taller than before, but he's nowhere near as tall as the growing pile of Helena's birthday presents. And those are just from the Pereska family and Caesar. Think of how many the guests will bring. One day before the party, Aagot and Helena have a sparring match. Helena is pleased to see that her student hasn't been neglecting her studies, and as a reward, agrees to take an hour out of her busy schedule to spend time with her. It quickly becomes clear that there's some kind of plot amongst the servants, as Aagot runs off to get changed and Helena is given a very extravagant dress to put on. Bessie even starts crying, getting all emotional about how quickly she's grown up. These people really can't hide a thing. Aagot then leads her to the servants' quarters where a small but heartfelt surprise party awaits her. They clubbed together to buy her a gift, a beautiful plaque with 2 swords buried in a golden slate. Helena is genuinely touched. They know her so well. And this is the first time in both her lives that she has really had a home where people could protect her, love her, miss her when she's gone. So she thanks them wholeheartedly and spends the rest of the evening in their company. When she returns to her room, Caesar is waiting for her, just sitting on a chair in the dark like some kind of vampire. Such a drama king, this guy. He's obviously been there for hours, which is even creepier. He's come to nag her about his invitation, or to be more accurate, his lack of invitation. Helena firmly reminds him that there's a very good reason he didn't get one, but he grabs her hand and says he couldn't bear it. Again, with the dramatics. As she points out, he could have come tomorrow instead of arriving in the middle of the night like this. But of course, Caesar planned it this way. Since it's past midnight, he gets to be the first person to wish her a happy birthday. Even Helena's cold heart is a little warmed by the gesture, and she thanks him for visiting. The next morning, she makes her appearance at the ball in a gorgeous gown, absorbing compliments from just about every noble in the empire. Many important families have made an appearance, which suggests that they are still considering which side to take between the Empress and the Crown Prince. No one is really here to wish her a happy birthday, except Caesar, of course, who has forced his way into the party despite all common sense. He also chooses to flirt with her very publicly, so clearly he doesn't care at all about the political consequences of his actions. It's a good thing he has Helena, or his head would be in a basket by now. The next person to greet her is the eldest son of Earl Luke, who is around the same age as Leonard. He's one of the few people who sincerely congratulates her, so she agrees to dance with him. Just as she's taking his hand, another hand appears, separating them. As you've probably guessed, it's Caesar, who refuses to let anyone else have Helena's first dance. Ugh, seriously, can't he be a little more subtle? Just a little? With all the guests watching, they take to the floor. Caesar compliments her ability, surprised that his swordmaster is also skilled at dancing. But really, what can't she do? It was actually Ares, Caesar's ancestor, who taught her how to dance. No matter how many times she stepped on his foot, he was always patient. While Helena is deep in her memories, she trips. Effortlessly, the Crown Prince lifts her into the air instead, catching the attention of, well, everybody. At least she avoided making a fool of herself. But if people didn't think they had something going on before, there will be no doubt now. Rip Ulica. Once the birthday celebrations are complete, it's time for Helena to venture to the capital. She leaves behind her family with Aagot in tow, feeling strangely nervous about this new chapter of her life. When she arrives at the mansion, she is greeted by her new servants and Hamilton, who informs her that both Leonard and Caesar are due to visit this weekend. She can't exactly turn him away, but wherever that boy goes, trouble follows, so you can't blame her for being a little moody. After the usual formalities, they get straight to business, with Hamilton and Rowena receiving her report on the noble families who might be of use to the Crown Prince's alliance. More than her own experiences, she used Aagot and her contacts among other family servants to get information. Hamilton is impressed and asks her to formally become the Crown Prince's teacher. That would require her moving into the Imperial Palace and would also prompt a large reaction from noble society. A lot of people would be against it. Up until this point, she has acted exclusively through other people, pulling strings behind the scenes to aid Caesar in his journey. Coming into the spotlight might be dangerous and might also attract criticism to the prince as well as her. Rowena then tells her about an old aristocrat named Ben who recently attended a Pereska party to ask for aid in defending his border from monsters that have recently infested the area. It seems he doesn't have enough soldiers, so he consulted her family for support. He already went to seek the help of the Imperial Order, but apparently he was rejected, which is a clear sign that the Empress is against him, which presents a great opportunity to sway him to their side and gain a lot of support and respect for Caesar. Hamilton therefore suggests that she use her skills to provide him aid and rid his territory of the monsters, while simultaneously bringing him to the prince's side. It's not a bad plan. More than anything, Helena is just surprised that he and Rowena actually trust her abilities enough to pull it off. She accepts, but on one condition. She gets to pick her combat squad. Of course, that will have to include her 3 disciples, Leonard, Caesar, and Aagot. I mean, she's their teacher after all, and a teacher never misses a chance to put her students to the test. But isn't the Crown Prince a little busy to be helping out with border skirmishes? A few days later, that very Crown Prince is dedicating his afternoon to planning ways to get closer to Helena. So clearly he's not too busy for trivial things like this. He's becoming frustrated, so much so that Rowena offers him counseling, which is kind of funny. Instead of therapy, Rowena suggests that he seek the help of a famous black knight named Draco, who is apparently very good at winning over ladies. Oh, I can see this going wrong already. Doesn't he know by now that Helena is not like other girls? When summoned to the palace, Draco admits that his secret is just being really, really attractive. So that's not especially helpful. After Caesar explains that the lady in question has known him for a long time, Draco suggests a technique called wall smashing. It's basically that classic movie moment where a guy leans up against a wall with a girl beneath him, giving him the chance to look down on her with super sexy eyes. Yeah, I don't know if that will really work on someone like Helena, but I guess it's worth a try. The next time he and Helena are together, he draws them into an empty hallway and pushes her against a wall. But it's super awkward, and he doesn't quite get the technique right. Even so, he powers through, taking her chin in his hand and gently tilting her head upwards. Uh-oh, wrong move. A warrior like Helena doesn't just sit there when someone corners her. She pushes back, quite violently actually. So there's that plan failed. The weekend arrives, and with it comes Leonard, reuniting the trio from their childhood. Once they're all together, Caesar tries his second scheme, which is basically just to get them all drunk. Plot twist, Dante was once a mercenary and had a bit of a drinking problem. Unfortunately, Helena Pereska cannot handle her alcohol and is totally out for the count after half a glass of wine. Sheesh, talk about a low tolerance. When she next opens her eyes, her head is on Caesar's lap. Still a little drunk, she starts admitting all these crazy feelings, including that she likes him. Whoa, what? Just like that? Of course, by the next day, she's pretending it never happened. If there's one thing these two are good at, it's denying reality. While deadly hungover, Helena proposes the expedition to Ben's infested border, which the Crown Prince is totally against. He's happy to go by himself, but he doesn't want her there because it's too dangerous. What, like she can't handle herself? She manages to sway him by promising to demonstrate her true abilities on the battlefield, something she's never really shown before. A lord named Dalton, leader of the Red Knights, offers his support, so Helena meets with him in person to select their team. She gets all dressed up for the role, but when she stands before the knights, a few of them start laughing. Clearly, they don't want to take a woman seriously, but boy, have they picked the wrong lady to mess with. One man asks if this is really a mission to protect her, but Helena fires back that she doesn't accept protection from those who are weaker than her. Ouch! To prove herself, she offers to hand over leadership of the expedition to anyone who can beat her in combat, right here and now. One dares to step forward, first wanting confirmation that he will not be punished for harming a noble lady. Yeah, like you could even get a scratch on her, buddy. Even so, Helena assures him that there will be no consequences, and the duel begins. In literally one move, his sword has flown from his hands and she has him on his knees, a sword pressed to his throat. Well, that was over quickly. The next 3 matches go pretty much the same way, as do the next 20. By that point, she has proven her ability. From now on, no one will dare to question her orders. But they've also proven that none of them are worthy to be in the expedition group. Helena leaves that day without a single soldier, and 3 days later, the entire force visit to personally beg her forgiveness. The selection is officially over, but they want a chance to try again, and also to learn from this incredible swordsmanship master. She warns them that she won't go easy. Anyone who disobeys her commands or tests her authority will be punished most cruelly. Even knowing that, the soldiers accept her leadership, and finally, they can begin training for the expedition. While they're sparring with the Red Knights, the inspection team has returned from the border, which means it's time to get going. Helena and her disciples leave first, eager to see the mysterious borderlands. In the last few years, magical beasts are said to have grown in number and ability, but recently the number dropped. Some have theorized that this is due to a dragon, but there's been no confirmation yet. Anyone get a sense that's going to come back again later? While out on an initial patrol with Ben, they discover the footprints of a black dog they've been hunting for some time already. It seems to be nearby, so Ben advises they turn around and go home. He's probably just saying that because he thinks Helena and Aagot would be in danger, but there's no point in turning around when they found the beast. Luckily, the choice is made for him when the black dog in question suddenly appears, knocking over one of the men. Looks like it's time for the girls to show what they're made of. The dog comes charging towards Helena, but Leonard cuts it down before she even draws her sword. I hope now this Ben guy knows not to mess with the Pereskas. He's also learned that the black dogs are, despite previous belief, active in the daytime. They return to Ben's estate for a debrief, where he explains that reports of the beast began to arrive not too long ago. He mentions the dragon worshippers, known as the Draco sect, who visited his home last spring. They told stories of the dragon's revival, which of course Ben didn't believe at the time. But after the Draco sect started performing rituals of revival in the forest, the number of beasts has dramatically increased. Well, that's not good news. What if they end up summoning a dragon? He promises to report any new information directly to Helena, but for the time being, she's going out with her squad to investigate. She warns her disciples to stick together, never turn their back, and to aim from the side rather than the front, because if they encounter the black dogs, the biggest danger are the teeth. She catches her brother losing focus and asks what's wrong. He's still thinking about what Ben said earlier about the link between the dragon's revival and the reappearance of the beasts. I mean, even if the dragon sect were a total hoax, isn't it weird that the last famous dragon slayer has been coincidentally reborn in this time period? It's almost as if she'll have to, I don't know, slay a dragon again? For the time being, however, their focus is the dogs, and it's also likely they'll have to take down a beast known as a lucrocota. It has a lion's body and a badger's head, and is both large and quick. It also has revival abilities, making it impossible to kill unless it suffers a direct blow to the head. For that task, Helena appoints Caesar, who looks a little intimidated, but who better to take the winning blow than the crown prince? They set off at once, hot on the trail of a pack of black dogs scouted in the northern forests. The traps that were laid for them have mostly been broken, which is a sure sign that Lucrocota is prowling nearby. Caesar seems nervous. Actually, everyone is guarded. Since it's nighttime, it's much harder to spot beasts at a distance, especially in the forest. But the prince is mainly concerned for Helena's safety. The last dog went directly for her, so he's worried she'll be targeted again. The first dogs are spotted, so Helena orders the squad to assume their positions and not to break rank. Once everyone is in place, they strike back. It seems like Caesar's theory might be correct, so Helena reshuffles their positions, orders the flanks to step back so that she can draw the dogs directly to her. What is she doing? With Aagot by her side, they start taking down the first few dogs, building momentum for the squad. But any hopes they had of victory are quickly dashed when suddenly, the infamous Reconnecting appears from the shadows, looming over the knights. He really is huge. In an instant, it has squashed one of the knights, causing everyone to panic. Helena orders them to hold the line, but they're too scared to stay in position. In a situation like this, there's only one man she can turn to: Caesar. It's time to introduce this beast to the future emperor. He'll make quick work of the beast, of that she's sure. But that doesn't mean the others can just stay still. Leonard draws his sword, slashing at Reconnecting from the sides, while Aagot nimbly strikes it across the face, leaving a bloody scar across its eye. Good shot! Now is the perfect time for Caesar to land the finishing blow. But as Helena is calling him in, the beast lunges towards her instead. How did it get there so fast? Its giant maw is open wide, and for a moment, Helena truly thinks she's in danger. Then, Caesar lands his killing blow, knocking Reconnecting to the ground. Aagot hugs her mistress in relief, though Helena is too stunned to speak. It's definitely true then. The beasts are going after Helena, and Helena alone, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, as one of the knights points out. Using herself as bait was a good idea, but she'll have to be careful in future. While Aagot helps the knights check for injuries, Helena inspects the corpse of the beast and spots something gold and glowing on its chest. The pattern has a dragon at the center, and when Helena touches it, she suddenly feels a twinge in her chest. Uh-oh. Is that the crest of the Draco sect? The ground starts rumbling beneath her. When Caesar hears her cry, he looks up to find Helena dangling from the jaws of a white and gold serpent high above the trees. How the heck did that happen? It's Leonard who strikes first. Without hesitation, he slashes at the serpent's long neck, causing it to howl in pain and drop Helena. She lands in Caesar's arms, luckily unharmed. But the fall has made her too dizzy to fight. Or is it poison? Could it be that there was poison in the demon's saliva that is slowly causing paralysis? Either way, Helena refuses to give in to her frail body. She decides to slay the serpent in one hit, but she can't see very well, so she uses her teammates to locate it. Caesar stands behind her to steady her, giving her an exact location with which to pinpoint the beast. With his support, Helena is confident, so she orders the others to step back and rushes ahead, using all of her senses to attack. It's a good thing she's got such a dedicated team behind her, although I don't know where all those other knights went. With her friends at her back, she leaps into the air with her swords raised high, striking along the body of the beast in a vicious swipe. But after landing the hit, she bounces off the serpent and falls through the air. She has so much faith in Caesar that she doesn't even try to land. She just trusts that he will catch her like he always does. That is literally the textbook definition of blind faith, but it's not misplaced. Caesar has to sprint to catch her in time, and with the force of his leap, they both go sliding across the dirt. He holds her tight in his arms, taking all the impact and reassuring her that she's safe. Everything is all right now. Suddenly, Helena's mind flashes to a dream of her past life, featuring her only friend, Mr. Gray. When she opens her eyes, she's in bed, still Helena, and with her arm in a sling. She sits up, grateful to find that she's not totally paralyzed, but still very stiff. Someone at her side remarks at how surprising it is that she's not in pain. Of course, it's Caesar. I'd bet good money that he didn't leave her side all night. She tries to convince him that her injuries are no big deal, but it turns out she broke 2 ribs and fractured her shoulder blades and the bones in her right arm. Oh, so they kind of are a big deal then. In that case, it's definitely strange she doesn't feel much. Maybe the paralysis poison is still wearing off. According to the doctor, her eyesight will gradually return in time. Helena then asks about Leonard, the hero who didn't hesitate to strike the serpent and free her from its grasp. He's fine too, thankfully. Caesar promises to take care of her while she heals, which for some reason Helena finds hilarious. Girl, don't you know by now that he's never joking? I'm pretty sure he'd drop his claim to the throne if she asked him to. The atmosphere then becomes quite tense when Caesar asks why she attacked alone. He feels incredibly guilty that she is the one who got injured and not him, and knows her well enough to guess that she was trying to take their enemies on all by herself. He confesses that he would do anything she asked, just so long as she doesn't do it alone. Aw, he knows all the best lines. Until now, of course, Helena has never been able to lean on anyone, so it's strange to have someone begging to lighten her load. She asks him why he feels the need to look after her like that, and he says it's because he likes her, so much that he would sacrifice himself for her sake. So much that actually, it's more like love. Oh my gosh, a confession? Finally! Let's hope she finally gets the message this time. I don't know how she continues to refuse this man. Seriously, that was straight out of a fairy tale. By the time she's up and out of bed, Helena seems stressed, to say the least. Love is the one thing she has absolutely zero experience in, so she decides to turn to someone trustworthy for advice. And that person is Hamilton. Although he has his own worries, he's drafting a report to Duke Pereska and wondering how to tell the father that his daughter can't come home because she's seriously injured after fighting a giant serpent. Yeah, something tells me he's not going to take that news very well. But he puts his pen down once he hears that this is about love affairs. Although it's cute that she came to him for help, Hamilton points out that it's kind of impressive she took this long to find out about Caesar's true feelings. He's just saying what we're all thinking. At the time, she didn't react very well to the confession. She got flustered, said she had no idea how he felt, and called it weird. Oh no, Helena! Disappointed, Caesar told her to forget the confession and left her to rest. I'm sure he must have been devastated, but he hid it well. In every interaction afterwards, he acted like normal, while Helena struggled to get more than one word out at a time. He didn't seem dispirited by her reaction and continued flirting and feeding her cake, even wiping a crumb from her chin. Just classic Caesar stuff. Many more awkward encounters later, and the Pereska princess ended up seeking counsel from Hamilton. He asks if the prince wants a response to his confession, and Helena replies that he doesn't. He hasn't put any pressure on her at all, really, unless you count incredibly persistent optimism. Hamilton suggests that if that's the case, she should just act like usual. But now that the truth is out in the open, that's pretty much impossible. He assures her there's really no problem and tells her to do whatever she likes with the confession. Ignore it, accept it, reject it. It's her choice. Helena thinks back on all the years she has spent with Caesar, trying to imagine what it might be like to love the man who was once her childhood friend. They grew up more like master and student than family friends, so naturally there's a lot of affection and trust in their bond. But as Hamilton says, it's not surprising this is all strange and confusing for her, especially since it's her first time receiving a confession from a man. He asks how she feels when the prince shows her affection, because like he said, it's her feelings which are most important now. In a flashback, we witness Gray bursting in on Emperor Dante, who has just taken out a room full of assassins who now lie unconscious on the floor. She acts just as cool as Helena, asking Gray for a glass of water, and then thought she'd asked too much. Her companion answered that he could never do too much for her, but that made Dante wonder. The men lying on the floor were sent by the very people she considered family, so now she's beginning to question what relationships and loyalty really means. Gray answered that their relationship could be summoned up quite simply, as friends. Helena then wakes up in her current life and covers her face with a pillow. This is the second dream from her past life, and in every one of them, Gray has been exactly like Caesar. From looks to personality to that cute little wink he does. Later on, Rowena asks her outright if she and the Crown Prince have started dating. Can't she tell it's complicated? Embarrassed, Helena nearly falls off the balcony, completely lost for words. Rowena doesn't seem the slightest bit bothered, even when she sinks to her knees and admits they're not currently involved. By now, Helena's arm has healed and they are soon going back to the capital. The prince is holding a party at the palace to celebrate the defeat of the Black Dogs and the Serpent. Rowena offers to take on all the work on her behalf, just as Caesar appears below them, all sweaty from his swordsmanship practice. He looks up at her like a little puppy, making Rowena show a rare smile. She hints that he will go back to being the busy crown prince after the party, so for now, she should try to enjoy his adorable enthusiasm. After day comes night, over and over again. Helena is plagued by these dreams of Gray/Caesar and can't admit that she actually really likes them. To avoid facing Caesar's charms in the dream world, she stays up all night, making Aagot very concerned when she finds her the next morning. Pretty soon there's a roaring fire and some tea brewing to restore some of her energy. Aagot dutifully wraps her up in layers and layers of warm clothing so that she doesn't get sick. Even though she's just walking around the house. Overkill much? But it kinda looks like she's trying to make up for Helena's injuries at the battle, so she stays quiet and lets her fuss. She considers telling Aagot about the prince's confession, but considering their long-standing hatred, she decides it's probably not a good idea. Wrapped up like a snow angel, Helena heads off to her meeting with Ben, Hamilton, and Caesar to discuss their expedition and impending departure. From beneath all her layers, Helena apologizes for being late and confirms that she and the rest of her party will be leaving tomorrow. They're grateful to Ben for being their host, but really it's him who is thankful. With the beasts gone, the people of his region can live in peace. He doesn't know how to repay them, but offers to do anything His Highness requires should something come up. That's music to Caesar's ears, but it only gets better. Ben has something to show them and calls his butler over. A few moments later, some mysterious object arrives in a fancy glass cabinet. Atop an ornate perch has been laid a piece of skin from the Serpent, the one with the Draco sect seal. As soon as she lays eyes on it, Helena's chest seizes again, just the way it did on the battlefield. Caesar shakes her out of it, and the pain starts to fade. But what the heck is it? Ben thinks the outer circle looks like a magic symbol, and it seems to have been stamped onto the beasts. The Marquis sent it to the Magic Society, but even they didn't have a clue. It's not an ancient spell or anything like that, so there's a good chance that it is in fact related to the Draco sect. They want to summon the head of their creepy little cult, but without any proof, it would probably just ruffle some feathers. For some reason, Helena thinks of Eulica and all those books on magical theory she has hidden away. She copies a symbol on a piece of paper to bring back to the capital. Somehow, even the copy causes her pain. The next morning, they depart from Ben's castle, promising to meet again in the future. Returning to the capital, everything feels different from when they left. Now everyone seems full of energy, and the atmosphere is warm and inviting. Helena is barely making an expression, but Caesar catches it and asks why she's feeling so happy. He doesn't miss a thing. Helena doesn't know how to react, so she just stares back blankly, and Caesar tells her to forget about it. He keeps staring at her even after she's looked away, which makes her uncomfortable. But Caesar says he's always staring at her, so really, this is nothing new. He offers to close his eyes to make her more comfortable, which is even more awkward. Helena's face is bright red, and she can't look at him. It's a good thing Aagot is asleep, or she probably would have thrown the prince out of the carriage already. From the window, she spots a strange hooded figure standing over a crowd, preaching about the dragon savior. It strikes a familiar chord, and suddenly she remembers No, the man from her childhood who treated her like a deity, like he'd been waiting for her birth. Helena stops the carriage at once. She and Caesar each grab a cloak and head in for a closer look. The preacher claims she was healed from a chronic illness thanks to the dragon god, which seems to be the name of the one who leads the cult. Everyone is saying it's a gift from the dragon, but that's not the kind of creature Helena remembers. Dragons never healed anyone, they only killed and stole. It sounds like the words of crazy people, so Helena is about to return to the carriage when she spots a blonde, hooded man in the crowd. Just as she thought, it's No. He spots her, smiles, and then disappears. The crowd is too big to get through, but she doesn't want to lose him. She tries to push through, and her hood comes off, revealing to the fanatics that a noble is among them. This isn't going to be good. A man catches her wrist, refusing to let go even when she tries to run away. By now, No is long gone. She has no hope of finding him in the winding alleys, and even if she did, what would she say? The man at her wrist takes about 3 seconds to get creepy, which is always Caesar's cue to step in. Literally, he kicks the man to the ground and brings Helena safely through the cultists without any more drama. Once they're alone, he asks about No, but Helena dodges the question, claiming that he's just an acquaintance. Yeah, like she would yell and run so desperately toward an acquaintance. This girl needs lying lessons for real. But she is starting to think that she might have been mistaken. How could his face be the exact same after all these years? Maybe it wasn't No after all. After returning home, a lot of things changed. Leonard graduated from his academy and became a knight. Next spring, he will be promoted to vice captain of the cavalry. And after that, Helena will become the official swordsmanship teacher for the crown prince. It's a fancy title, but she doesn't really want it, especially because it includes passing on her skills to the Red Knights, as well as her precious disciples. The only one less happy than her is the prince, who really doesn't like the idea of sharing his teacher with other young men. As punishment for his possessiveness, Helena makes everyone run 30 laps. There's the ruthless teacher we know and love. Caesar does his laps and barely breaks a sweat. But clearly, he didn't learn his lesson because afterwards, tells Helena that no one is allowed to call her master except her existing disciples. Helena agrees to keep the name between them if he can beat her just once in 5 rounds. Caesar doesn't wait another second and strikes before she even raised her sword. Helena accuses him of being cocky, but Caesar is too caught up with how lovely she looks holding a sword. She launches at him, determined to wipe that smirk off his face. Their swords clash and clang, but neither of them seem to be breaking a sweat. Helena isn't too proud to admit that his abilities have improved, however. She even thinks he might be able to beat her, but that doesn't mean she's not going to do her very best. She strikes back, and hard, but Caesar defends with his bare arm. It reminds her of when they were young and he used just the same tactic to block her sword. He didn't get hurt, but it's dangerous, especially now that they're using real blades. Helena is so shocked that she pauses, giving Caesar a chance to tackle and lift her into the air. She's mad at him for being so stupid, but I mean, it's Caesar. What else did she expect? She starts beating him and he loses his balance, landing her back on the ground. He jokes that she nearly killed him, but his master is just getting started. An insult to her pride will not go unpunished. After an intense match in which Helena comes out victorious, she rewards herself with a nice, steamy bath. She's still a little irritated with Caesar for using his arm to block a blow. It might be finally time to consider what would happen if he actually beat her one day, although he might lose a limb doing it. It suddenly occurs to Helena that she's been thinking about Caesar all day. It's getting harder and harder to deny that she has feelings for him, because, let's be honest guys, I think we can all tell what's happening here. Later, while she's getting ready, Caesar comes to visit, looking even more bothered than before. Apparently, the knights were looking for their teacher, but he chased them all away. He repeats again that he has no intention of sharing her with others, which is quite the statement. He then declares that she can only have 3 students maximum, although I don't know who put him in charge of her teaching career. But instead of being offended, Helena is grateful. Even when he wants to be selfish, he always puts her first. Out of nowhere, she confesses her feelings and tells Caesar she likes him. What? Where did that come from? Caesar doesn't know how to react at first. As if to double check, he asks if she likes him as a friend or a student. But no, she is saying that she likes him. Annoyed, Helena asks if he wants her to repeat herself, and he enthusiastically nods. Helena says it again, reaching out to touch his cheek and draw closer. What is happening right now? Is anyone else totally lost? Where did all this confidence come from? As if that wasn't crazy enough, Helena then kisses him. Gone are the days of our stoic swordsmanship teacher. This girl is full-on romance professional already. The next morning, she is called in to see Duke Pereska, who wants to know if she will become the crown princess. She says yes, aware that this will bring the Pereska family into the center of the conflict. They won't be able to stay neutral any longer, and politics will begin to affect them more and more. But as Helena points out, she still hasn't had a proposal. Besides, for now, there are more important things to focus on. Helena grabs Aagot and ventures to a bookshop in town, looking for a particular magic book. She plans to give it as a gift to Yulika, but she has to know which book is relevant first. And that's kind of hard when she doesn't understand magic at all. She's just thinking about asking someone for help when they spot a blonde girl a few meters away. Helena asks her for a recommendation before she's even turned around. She's pleasantly surprised to see Yulika, though the young lady Brant looks a lot less happy about running into her. She suggests they ask a staff member instead, but Helena insists. She's the expert after all. She picks out a very heavy book and practically throws it at Helena. She sends Aagot off to pay and confesses that she's actually been looking for a present for Yulika. The girl is a little taken aback by her forward behavior and accuses her of flirting. Helena just rolls with it and even asks her on a date. Well, this has taken a turn. They go to a cafe where Helena prepays for all the food and gives Yulika the full girlfriend experience. It seems she's taken a leaf out of Caesar's book. Her flirting style is just like his. Yulika thinks she's making fun of her and looks thoroughly irritated. Helena teases her, reminding her date of all the watching eyes. Everyone knows who they are, so they have no choice but to behave themselves if they don't want to start a rumor. Yulika accuses her of picking the location on purpose, but as Helena says, it would have been far more dangerous to be somewhere alone. Fearing for her life, Yulika tells her to get on with it, so she gets straight to the point. She needs to borrow her expertise and pulls out her drawing of the Draco sect symbol. Yulika has never seen anything like it before, but says it's definitely not a rune. Runes are made by humans in order to use magic, but this looks like a different format. She suggested it might be another kind of language, but not one she's read before. Helena is a bit disappointed. She was hoping she might have an answer, but then Yulika has a change of heart and asks if she can keep the paper to do some more research. Helena immediately cheers up and makes her promise to report back as soon as she finds something new. Now that business is out of the way, Helena returns to her cheerful, flirty persona, encouraging her friend to have some cake. While she digs in, enjoying the food, Yulika just glares at her. Though honestly, I don't know why she's so bothered. At this point, can't they just be friends? She was never going to win the crown prince anyway. Reluctantly, Yulika takes a bite, surprised at how delicious it is. Helena suggests that they can actually get along quite well at times, but that's the final straw for Yulika. Convinced that she's being made fun of, she slams her fork down on the table. Helena tries to reassure her, but Yulika doesn't trust her one bit. She thinks she's showing off, trying to insult Yulika because she has the favor of the crown prince. She sternly announces that the position of crown princess belongs to the Brandt family and the Brandt family alone. Oof, someone's gotta tell her. Not only is that totally untrue, it's also kind of sad. She's only thinking of herself as a tool for her family. Helena gently tells her that she can be her own person, but of course, that doesn't go down well either. Yulika just feels like she's pitying her for wanting the title at any cost, and says she has no right to look down on her. She abruptly stands up, bidding Helena a curt goodbye and leaving at once. Damn, that's really such a shame. They could be such good friends if only Yulika would trust her a bit more. Even after several days pass, Yulika's parting words stay in her mind. She was bitter and angry because she believed that she could never have Caesar's love, and therefore Helena was looking down on her. She wonders if she was being too arrogant or even narrow-minded. She's still deep in thought when Rowena appears, interrupting her. The ball to celebrate the defeat of the magic beast is coming up, so Rowena says Helena will have to be more beautiful than any other girl, especially Lady Brandt. Ugh, why is everyone trying to pit them against each other? Helena tries to refuse, but Rowena tells her the competition is already underway. The Empress has summoned the best fashion designer and dance teacher in the entire empire, so now they have to match her efforts. This isn't a ball, it's an all-out war. Rowena assures her that while they don't have the Empire's best designer, they still have some very promising ones. And the dresses are truly stunning. The pieces assembled are all classy and elegant, as is the expensive jewelry laid out for her to pick. Helena asks Rowena to tone things down a little, and she apologizes. It's not Yulika they want to beat, but the Empress. Rowena has a special grudge against her. When she was a child, her family was purged by the Empress, who shoved them aside to get closer to the throne. You see, Rowena's family are closely related to the former Empress, Caesar's biological mother, so she is strongly motivated to get revenge. Helena is a little flustered. I mean, that's some pretty intense backstory for a side character. Rowena tries not to put too much pressure on her. She's already thankful to Helena for making Caesar so much happier and more confident. She owes him a lot after all. He raised her up to her current position when the rest of her family were crushed in the power struggle between the former and current Empress. So if Helena is important to Caesar, then she's important to Rowena too. Helena is surprised by the sincerity in her eyes, although it's soon replaced by the hunger for revenge. She drags Helena into a changing room and throws her into a beautiful ball gown. Aagot says she looks like an angel, but let's not breeze past Leonard. He also looks incredibly handsome in his little white suit. Rowena tells them to get a move on and says that Helena should be careful not to ruin her pretty outfit. The only thing she's allowed to mess up is her lipstick. A sly comment that completely goes over Helena's head. She's so innocent. The Imperial castle is all lit up for the occasion, and already floods of guests are pouring in. Everyone compliments Helena on her appearance, but this time, she also gets praise for her bravery on the battlefield. Let's not forget, this is all to celebrate her triumph over the monsters. That's something the Empress is clearly struggling with. She's not receiving as much attention as usual, and her irritation shows. She's probably also feeling weaker because her usual groupie is absent. Despite all the dance teachers and expensive designers, Yulika Brandt is a no-show. I wonder if Helena's words finally got through to her. The other girls can't help but gossip. The word around town is that the Empress might have finally dropped her, which seems a little mean. Helena is about to set them straight when the girl of the hour appears. The mean girls run away at once, too embarrassed to face the woman they were so clearly gossiping about. Yulika thinks Helena was chatting with them and doesn't believe Helena when she says she was trying to stop them. Okay, she's being unreasonable now. Has she forgotten who was the first one to start pulling nasty tricks? What about the wine? Trying to be the bigger person, Helena starts to apologize, both for the misunderstanding and everything in the past. She gets about halfway through before she notices her dress. It's strangely similar to hers, and even has the same floral embellishment. Wait, have they come as a matching set? Oh, this is priceless. Fortunately, Caesar arrives to clear up any misunderstanding. The matching set is between him and Helena, not the girls. The lovebirds immediately start with their usual fairy tale dialogue, while poor Yulika sort of just stands there watching them. That is, until her father, Count Brandt, appears. Uh-oh, why does Yulika look like that? Is he about to say something uncomfortable? Sensing an intrusion, Caesar asks the Count to speak quickly and be on his way. He just interrupted the lovers, after all. Count Brandt is twice as sneaky as his daughter and claims he only wanted to ask how things are going with the soldiers he supplied. They have a brief discussion about politics, and then he turns to Helena. As congratulations for her brilliance on the battlefield, he had Yulika prepare something special. Which seems kind of messed up to me. Why is he making his daughter do all the work? With a backhanded compliment to his daughter, he makes Helena stand awkwardly by herself as Yulika moves towards the piano. She plays well, but it's hard to ignore all the guests who can't stop gossiping about her and comparing her to Helena, who is using this time as an opportunity to walk around the gardens, finally getting a moment of peace from all the guests. The Count was clearly trying to separate her from the prince so that he could focus on Yulika instead. She starts to wonder what would happen if Yulika became crown princess. Would she get to see the best parts of Caesar? All the innocent expressions she treasures that are shown only to Helena? His bright smile? His kisses? Could he give those to another girl? No, of course not. In fact, he's already left the performance to come and find her, even though the Count will probably be very offended. Delighted, Helena asks if she can give him a hug. He takes her in his arms at once, and Helena accuses him of ruining her. He says that he was ruined a long time ago, so she tells him they should let it all go to ruin and keep this all a secret between the two of them. It's crazy how fast she went from denying her feelings to being head over heels. We've never seen Helena so affectionate. Anyone can see that these two would do anything for each other. Their love fest is interrupted when Helena gets a summons from the Emperor, which is a little stressful. Of course, this ball gives him the perfect excuse to meet her, since he probably owes her some compliments for slaying the beasts. What his real intentions are, however, well, we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot that could go wrong, but Caesar is there to reassure her. She has nothing to worry about. Even if the Emperor hated her, it wouldn't change a thing. They can always just elope. I mean, he'd be leaving behind an entire empire and ruining all the work they've done so far, but whatever. Love is love, right? Helena introduces herself as gracefully as possible to the Emperor, who is sat beside the Empress at the head of the banquet table. He invites her to sit down and thanks her for her efforts in the provinces and for achieving something that even the Imperial family could not achieve. The Empress also praises her, but of course, it comes with a twist. She says the Pereska princess is so talented that it makes her worry. She worries that the prince's judgment might be clouded by all the compliments Helena is receiving. But Caesar strikes back, claiming he had the clearest judgment of all for bringing someone so special to the Imperial palace. The Empress agrees and then suggests they bestow Helena with a title and land of her own. She's trying to move her away from the capital! Helena tries to resist, but the Empress just puts more and more pressure on her. In the end, it's the Emperor's decision, not hers. So Caesar asks his father what he will choose. The atmosphere couldn't be more tense. Fortunately, the Emperor sides with his son. This isn't the place to talk about titles anyhow. Helena survives the dinner and the ball. Barely. But she's been shown the true dark side of Imperial politics, and boy, is it tough. She's not sure she's cut out for it, which could mean big problems for her and Caesar's relationship down the line. Seeking an expert for some advice, she approaches Rowena. She is hoping to improve her relationship with Caesar and explains that she already has a whole date planned out in her mind. They'll go to a cafe, then an opera, and then have a walk to enjoy the scenery. Rowena, who is apparently a dating expert, is surprised she managed to come up with such a normal date considering she has no prior experience. It seems like she might have had some help from some very eager students. But Rowena says there's one thing missing, and that is, of course, a killer outfit. Rowena already has one in mind, because of course she does. So she drags Helena to the changing rooms and brings her out in a beautiful lilac dress. It's not really her style, but even Aagot loves it. So, like a knight preparing for battle, she summons a carriage, ready to take on her first ever date. After explaining their schedule to Caesar, he seems very pleased. I mean, I think we all know he'd be willing to do just about anything so long as it's with her. They head off to the cafe first, where Helena whips out a pretty little umbrella. The soldiers told her that the prince would want a girl who is gentle and delicate, which isn't really Helena. But she tries her best to smile gentle and seem dainty with her accessories, ignoring the strange look Caesar is giving her. Luckily, he recovers the moment by pulling her into his side, taking the umbrella so they can stand closer together. Of course, the prince is always good with things like this. Flustered, Helena tells him just to take it if he's going to be like that. Caesar just smiles, takes her hand, and pushes them forward. It looks like he's going to be the one leading this date after all. The cafe she picked is perfect, other than the fact that it's completely empty. You might think that would be a good thing, since it can give them some privacy, but Helena is still a little embarrassed that she picked somewhere without much atmosphere. Still, Caesar thinks it's just perfect. Of course he would. With no one else around, he can be as flirty as he wants. Helena panics, trying to start a conversation, and resorts to the classic couple topics of family. Only that's kind of awkward given he doesn't have much of a relationship with his father, and his stepmother is a literal villainess. She asks if he looks more like his mother or father, and Caesar says he's been told that he looks like Erez Grey, the first emperor of his line. Helena perks up hearing her old friend's name, but then he says he doesn't like Erez. He always picked the Empire first over anything. That's totally opposite to Caesar, who says he would choose her over his subjects any day. Sounds like he would make for a pretty bad emperor, actually. The waiter brings dessert, which Helena basically devours on her own. Then they head off to the opera, where Helena starts to worry that the date is losing momentum. Before she can do anything to fix it, they hear someone yell for help from a nearby alleyway. Caesar grabs her for protection. The commotion is coming from a young lady who's been cornered by two men for you-know-what reason. On behalf of all womankind, Helena has to step in. She stands in front of the young lady, wielding her umbrella like a sword and telling the punks to back off. There she is! That's the Helena we all know and love. And that's it for today, guys. What did you think? As always, don't forget to like the video and comment for the next part so we know you want more. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for updates. See you in the next one!